I'm Mel Gurtov. I'm professor emeritus of political science at Portland State University. I previously taught at the University of California, Riverside, and prior to that, I was on the staff of the Rand Corporation in Santa Monica, California. I'm the author of some 30 books, a good deal of which is on China and on US foreign policy. Thinking about common ground and engagement between the US and China is not a very popular subject in Washington, as we all know. It's just almost taboo to suggest that we look past the sources of friction and find areas for common ground. And I think this is precisely why people are talking about our being in a new Cold War with China. What's particularly distressing to me about such talk is that when you look at from the American side, we are essentially a party to a war in Europe, an increasingly costly war without end, and dealing with a very aggressive Russian state. And yet that reality seems to be lost because the common view, which is shared by the Biden administration, is that China is the number one national security threat to the United States. That's a rather bizarre conclusion, I think, considering that we are involved in a proxy war. And it's not just a European war, because it really has become, in some respects, a world war involving China, India, and a good deal of the developing world having to choose sides or finding some way to be neutral. So that kind of perspective, I think, has gotten lost in Washington. And the notion of China as our main enemy has precluded any kind of diplomatic craft that would, create some new space in the U.S.-China relationship. And if you're going to have engagement, which I define in my book as a very serious and strategic process for transforming a relationship, not just managing the relationship, which is the typical lingo, but actually transforming the relationship, it requires thinking in a more deliberate way about how we reach out to an adversary. And of course, this applies to the Chinese side as well. It takes two to tango, and it also takes a recognition that, of course, there will be plenty of friction in the relationship. It's not a matter of idealistically thinking that all will disappear in terms of the many issues and different ways of dealing with policy that the United States and China have, but it's a turning around of what our priority is. Our strategic priority, in my view, and this is the essence of my book, should be establishing a more normal, positive relationship with China, accepting the fact that there are going to be differences of principles and values. If we put our priorities differently, then we will, be able to have a more peaceful and secure world. Now, I do understand and talk quite a bit about this in my book, that perhaps the biggest obstacle to engagement is in the politics of each side, the domestic politics. And certainly on our side, and I think on the Chinese side as well, there are people who are wedded to the idea of perpetual conflict and benefit in careers and in other ways from that conflict, and are not really interested in pursuing mutual security. And so that, I recognize is a very, very major obstacle. It does take political courage here, there, and everywhere else to engage with an adversary. And yet, when we think about the costs of that engagement in military spending, possibilities of conflict over Taiwan and elsewhere with China, then, and the lack of people-to-people contact that tensions with China have entailed, and those are just some of the costs, then we might want to do a reevaluation that says that, the benefits of engagement outweigh the costs. And in my book, I do make that cost benefit calculation. And that's why I come up with the view that engagement should be a strategic priority of the United States.